Let me read to you a passage from the 20th chapter of St John's Gospel, verses 2 to 8. It's the Gospel for the feast of St John the Evangelist on December the 27th. St John writes, Mary Magdalene came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they've put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter, who was behind him, arrived and went into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the burial cloth that had been round Jesus' head. The cloth was folded up by itself, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and he believed. That's from John chapter 20, verses 2 to 8. What does it suggest to us? Well, at times it is thought that our recognition of the truth of religion, and in particular the truth of the Christian religion, depends on what we might call proof by way of demonstration. A technical demonstration is akin to something like a mathematical or scientific proof that can be set down on paper and is secure against logical attack. If someone were to ask for a proof that energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared, then this could be done by recourse to Einstein's famous mathematical demonstration. This proof or demonstration leads to a mathematical certitude, and it compels the assent of the one who can follow it. But this is not the only way certitude is attained, and it is certainly inappropriate to expect this kind of demonstration for, say, religious certitude. Some expect it to be proved to them that God exists, that Christ is God, that he rose from the dead, and the proof they demand is a technical demonstration. In our Gospel today, Mary Magdalene comes running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the disciple Jesus loved, and tells them that they have taken the Lord out of the tomb and that they do not know where his body is. The tomb is empty and the body is gone. That is the stark fact, and interestingly, no one seems to have disputed the empty tomb. But that he arose from the dead is a further step, and it required the readiness to believe. We read in the Gospel of St Matthew that in some sense the resurrection was reported to the chief priests and the elders by the tomb guards. From the elders there then circulated the story that the body had been spirited away by his disciples. Matthew chapter 28 verse 15. The elders were not disposed to believe. Islam makes the gratuitous assertion that Jesus did not actually die after all. He swooned on the cross and revived in the cool of the tomb. Other Muslims have proposed that someone who looked like Jesus died on the cross, but not he. They, of course, are not disposed to believe, and this is how they account for the empty tomb, and in particular for the resurrection. For the acceptance of religious truth, a readiness is required. Peter and John set out and they run. It is evident that they are filled with love for their Master who has died and has left an unspeakable void in their hearts. It is now early on the third day since his awful death. But now the body is gone. They run, and they run hard, with John the younger outstripping the leader and arriving at the tomb first. He looks in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter, who was behind him, arrived and went into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the burial cloth that had been around Jesus' head. The cloth was folded up by itself, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and he believed. So, all that was there were the cloths. The tomb was empty. Something about the situation, be it the special arrangement of the burial linen and the cloth covering Christ's head, or be it some other factor, something there about the empty tomb indicated that Christ had risen. We read that he saw and he believed. This faith must have been but a dawning perception, only a beginning of the certitude that would be attained later on that joyful Easter Sunday when they would meet the risen Jesus. After all, we do read elsewhere in the Gospels of the difficulty the disciples had in accepting reports of him as risen. Nevertheless, we read that when he saw the empty tomb, in some sense he believed. It reminds us that the certitude that is involved in religious faith, in faith in the risen Jesus, involves more than a mere demonstration. Reason needs to be informed with love. If there is no love for the person of Jesus, then the indications of the true situation, which from strict logic may seem to be inconclusive, will not be seized upon by the reason and comprehended. If there is no love for God, then the indications in creation for his existence will probably not persuade the reason. This love that disposes the mind for belief is a moral love involving a good life. It is the person who wants to be good and who is disposed to love Christ and God who will perceive the force of the indications about him. In a word, one must be morally disposed for religious faith. One must have a readiness to believe if religious truth is to be attained. It is not a matter of mere demonstration. Let us be like John the Evangelist, whose feast day we celebrate today. The gospel is for his feast day. He loved Christ with an ardent love, and it was this love that enabled him quickly to perceive the meaning of the empty tomb. Let us cultivate and nourish love in our lives. Love for God, love for Christ, love for neighbour. This will nourish our readiness for faith, and our faith in its turn will then remain the foundation for love. On the basis of faith, we are able to love Christ, but if our love wanes, our faith will be at serious risk and vulnerable to threats. Let the love and faith of St John the Evangelist be our example.